Standardization is something we take for granted in classical information technology. But when it comes to quantum computing, are we all speaking the same language? How is one system manufacturer trying to ensure all aspects of QIS will interoperate going forward? Find out how in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Protiviti, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guest today is the Vice President of Global Policy and Partnerships at Pasqal, Catherine Lefebvre. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. I see you have PhDs in both molecular physics and theoretical chemistry, and quite an interesting background. So we should definitely start with how you found your way to QIS and focusing on this field.
Yeah, sure. I think I developed this passion for quantum in 2000 when I was an undergrad student. So like 23 years ago, I started diving into the Schrödinger equation and thought it was pretty cool. So I did from my undergrad to master and PhD. I really love understanding nature at its really microscopic level. And so I studied laser matter interaction. Was doing simulation, solving the time-dependent Schrödinger equation on a simulator, so using HPC resource. The type of simulation you would use, hopefully one day, a quantum computer, but back in the days, we didn't have that, and still today we don't have that for this kind of simulation. But that was really looking at ultra-fast dynamics of correlated electrons and nuclei in small molecules. And it was a lot of fun. I did my PhD in you call it co-tutelle. So I joined thesis program between France and Quebec. So I'm Canadian, and I actually studied in France, very close to where Pasqal has its office now. So it feels like I'm back to some of my roots. Yeah. And then I continued after my passion for research and quantum continued, and I decided to do postdocs, and I did 3 postdocs, did research for another 9 years or so. It's still in the same type of field, so laser matter interaction and ultra fast dynamics.
Yeah, because people
and I can go on for very long what I studied.
Yeah, it sounds like what I'm hearing is very early on, you were able to go from that theoretical, let's say the Schrödinger equation, and it sounds so fantastical and abstract, and then you're able to bring it to the lab and experience some aspect of it, and that's really exciting, right? That first time that you could bring it to life, and I feel like that's what quantum does in general. It's letting us touch that other layer of reality, so it's pretty cool.
Indeed. I think I was in what we call the quantum revolution 1.0, where we were studying quantum phenomena, observing quantum phenomena, but not at the point of engineering these processes and then, yeah.
It's like the quantum foundations.
Yeah, indeed.
So now bringing that practical aspect to Pasqal, let's talk about what Pasqal does. Can you give our listeners like a high-level intro to the neutral atom technology behind the QPU?
Sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, absolutely. So Pasqal is a neutral atom quantum computing company, full stack. So we develop the hardware and middleware and software application, algorithm, and so on. And on the hardware side, it's, again, laser matter interaction. We're using lasers to control atoms, to trap them and build a matrix of atoms, and then encode information and process the information in a very, very, very controlled manner using lasers. And neutral atoms have quite interesting advantages as compared to other modalities. So each modalities in quantum computing at this early stage of the technology have their pros and cons. And I'm going to just explain the pros of neutral atom, obviously.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're using atoms as our qubits, then the qubits are, the most pristine and perfect because there's no fabrication and the atoms are built by nature. So intrinsically, it is perfect. So that has multiple advantages, right? And then you have all the flexibility where you can have the 1D, 2D, or 3D matrix of I shouldn't say matrix for 1D, but I mean, you have a flexibility in the geometry of your qubits and also programmability using also laser pulses to encode the information and play with that. And then in terms of scalability, it is easy to add more atoms and build qubits out of them without any fabrication steps. And it's still in the very same device that is not that big. It fits in a relatively small box. Nothing to compare with the big dilution refrigerators that you need for superconducting qubits, for instance. So neutral atoms are in this. You have a very small vacuum chamber and all the other elements around it, but it's still small and it is room temperature. So that's a huge advantage also. And so it uses a much less energy as compared to other modalities. Another interesting thing with the neutral atom is that you can operate in two different modes. So you can operate it in analog mode or in digital mode. So the digital mode is the one that will deliver the universal quantum computing and all the power of it and fault tolerant quantum computing. But we're not there yet. No one is there yet. And we're developing this alongside, we're developing also the analog mode, which is for now what we see the most promising to achieve the practical quantum advantage early stage. So in the next few years for specific applications. So at Pasqal, we're looking at the two different modes at the same time with the very same device, but we can achieve both.
We have a credit risk offering based on a paper written using the Pasqal system. So yeah, they're obviously real. We know that. We have evidence. So how can our listeners access these machines today?
Yeah, the best way to access it is to partner with Pasqal, right? And that's what we've done. That's a nice demonstration that we did with Crédit Agricole. That was also a collaboration with Multiverse Computing. But we have a different level of offering. And the first level is what we call the quantum discovery. So it's really to onboard new customers and partners so that they learn not only the quantum computing itself, but also the specificity of neutral atoms. And they start coding, they start also testing different use cases. That brings them to the next level of really defining targeted use cases and starting proof of concept. So we have different levels where we really work with the customers. And then also I can say that we are finalizing the integration of the device, the emulator and the quantum processor on Microsoft Azure Quantum, and it should be available then for the cloud for anyone who wants to create an account on Microsoft and then use it. So that's two different ways. Like we also working with HPC centers, so that we're fully integrating our quantum accelerator in their HPC system and offering. So there'll be one installed in France and one in Germany. So the HPC users can also, like that are part of that ecosystem, can eventually use it. So there are different ways, but today, the best way is really to partner with us, and then we develop the best offer for each partner.
And you mentioned that you do the whole stack, so I guess you could
Yeah.
really set it up however you need to that way. Yeah.
Yeah, some are interested, some are interested in just the hardware, like really integrating into their HPC um, offering, like you add a GPU offering into your HPC system.
Hmm.
So the high performance computing, I guess, should define what HPC is. And then some others are definitely not interested, not even in coding. So we are defining the use case with them, and then defining the full method and the solution, and then implement eventually into their workflow.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds like a box that might end up in data centers very easily. It's not, like you said, a gigantic refrigerator or whatever. So it could, in theory,
Yeah,
be a rack, like a 2U rack or something one day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we are building. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Can you describe your role at the company?
Sure. My role at Pasqal is global. So I'm in charge of the academic partnerships, all the research partnerships that we do across the globe. And we do that to, accelerate our roadmap, our technology roadmap, and find experts all around the world to help us de-risk some parts and advance faster. And so we do that on both the hardware side and also on the algorithm side. And we also, another piece of my role is on standardization. So I'm setting up the strategy for the company on quantum computing standards. I have multiple hats there. I'm chairing 2 working group at IEEE. Mm-hmm. And I'm also convener of the new Joint Technical Committee at the European level. So I'm convener of the working group on quantum computing. And I follow what happens at ISO and other standard body. And aside of that, then I make sure that we're part of the ecosystem, right? So the company is headquartered in Paris in France, but I'm here in Boston in the US, and I'm Canadian, so I have strong roots in Quebec. So, and I know the ecosystem there. So making sure that we are part of the North American ecosystem and being part of the thing, building the community. I take part of all the activities at the QEDC and locally in Boston, working with the different startups and other players or actors in the ecosystem, and so that we have a stronger and more cohesive hub in the Boston area. So we're hosting some events and so on. Yeah, so that's what I do at Pasqal.
Yeah, it's amazing I was able to get you for a bit of time to do this recording.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, quite a lot of stuff there. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of standardization in quantum computing. It's one of those words that you hear about all across the industry, and people kind of forget about it after something becomes commonplace. So just let our listeners know some of the benefits, concerns. Standardization.
Sure. So, I hear a lot of people saying it's way too early to start standardizing this technology that is still under development, and but rather start early and define a common language, so that we once the technology is mature enough, then we already speak the same language, and we can define the very concrete standards. So I actually like what NIST is putting together as mapping the standard level readiness with the technology level, the readiness level of TRL with their SRL. And if we look at quantum computing, we are at the level of commercial prototypes. So this is not we're not in like implementation in the field yet, like at scale, but we're still pretty advanced. And if you're looking at their scale that NIST has put together, we're already at defining the terminology of quantum computing, the vocabulary. What is a qubit? What is quantum? What is the quantum computer? What is a quantum simulator? What is a simulation? We need to. There is a huge confusion, and when I go to Europe or I speak to people in the US, we don't have the same definition of simulation. So this is already the time to set what is what, and then we can define the functional description of different pieces of a quantum computer. What are the commonalities between the different modalities? The different, superconducting qubits does not operate the same way than the neutral atom qubits, and we don't use the same protocols the same way to, and also, so how do we benchmark? Should we benchmark against the hardware or against the application? There are debates like this that we need to discuss now with the experts. The benefits, I think, first is really to speak the same language and amongst the community, and that's a effort that should be international. That should be with all the experts from in the field, and you see that already some interesting play between either different countries or different experts. For us, Pasqal, we're developing neutral atom quantum computers that is not the mainstream. So we want to make sure that what we build, if standards are adopted and they do not reflect the type of technology that we develop, and we don't want to be forced to adopt a standard that does not correspond to the technology we have in it. A standard eventually is a stamp, a proof that we're delivering something interesting for the market. And if market cannot I'm looking for my words, but cannot have a proof that yes, this is a real quantum computer, or this is this function this way, and we can not benchmark against something that is adopted in the community, then it's not helping us. So we're making sure that Pasqal has that our technology is well represented while it is so early stage in the development of standards. So that's why we're part of this effort. So at the European level and also at IEEE.
Yeah, I wanted to draw some attention to this because when people think of NIST, they just think about the standards for post-quantum cryptography.
True.
And next year, we're going to have standards for protecting against a threat that's 10 years away, but we still haven't figured out what these machines are when it comes to standardization.
But I was working a little bit in standards many years ago in AI, and I was on the ISO, the Mirror Committee from Canada, and we had at that time we had 5 definition of AI, of what artificial intelligence is, and that is what in 2018 we didn't agree yet how to define AI. And then today we're really trying to urge people we need to regulate on AI and the application. So better start early and agree on definitions and terminologies and benchmarking methods and metrics and so on. Otherwise we'll try to catch up. And standard is this very slow effort, slow process, and the technology evolved very, very quickly. So we need to react also quickly in terms of standards.
Yeah, so I guess it's a good time to shift to a little AI discussion here. So how's your background on developing AI ecosystems come in handy in the quantum realm?
Yeah, maybe I'll rephrase this and just tell you how I ended up in AI and how I ended up back to quantum. Mm-hmm. So after being a researcher for almost 14 years, if I include my PhD studies, right, I I decided, okay, so I have this passion for quantum, for research, but I also have this passion for collaboration and mostly global collaboration. And I think it started from the time I was doing my PhD between Canada and France. And I was also leading this big research consortium with experimentalists and trying to find common language between theorists, my group, and the rest of the experimentalists. It's actually not that obvious. and you know, bridging between physics and chemistry and the different topics and different countries. I really enjoy that, and I think that, to me, this is the way that bringing experts together, we can advance knowledge and we can really help the development of science and technology. And so this is how I kind of carved my career after being a researcher. And at that time, there was not so many opportunities in quantum. Quantum technology was it was still mostly quantum science, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had some opportunities and surfed the AI wave, and I worked at a bank and I worked at a startup, and I was just building bridges between academia and the industry, and also with government. I was, making sure that we bring experts to develop some application for the bank or for that startup, and also translating to the business what the research was doing, what it meant. And then I had a short contract at the Quebec government as an advisor on quantum technology. And the Quebec government is really central to build the local ecosystem in quantum. So it's through these experiences that I really created this created the how do we work with the ecosystem, and how can we make them strengthening the ecosystem in AI, in quantum. But I have to be honest that my passion has always been in quantum. Even when I was working in AI, I kept following what was going on in the quantum sphere and how the industry was growing. So it's, to me, the role at Pasqal is absolutely perfect, because I'm bringing all the aspects that I like, and it's global, and then we see a lot of positive impact already.
Yeah, I get it. I hope the other thing that is a mirror is some kind of deep winter, like like we experienced with AI years ago. I definitely don't want to see that. So, but AI has stolen a little bit of quantum's buzz this year. People didn't really expect it, right? No one expected what would happen in late 2022. Do you think, though, that there's an opportunity here that maybe like quantum ML or some other synergistic use case might take advantage of this AI wave and like bring quantum back into the spotlight?
Yeah, I don't think they are competing. And let me say first, that maybe that's, yeah. Let me say the quantum winter is still a debate. And maybe with global warming, winters are not too cold anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
But joke aside, I really think quantum and AI are, I mean, they're not competing. It's and we're seeing a lot of development in quantum machine learning, for instance. And if I go back to this use case that we did with Crédit Agricole and Multiverse, this is a quantum machine learning use case where we actually developed this credit scoring application, detecting fallen angel. And what we observe in this first implementation on the hardware of QBoost, it's a new method that we developed, is that we reach, with a much simpler and faster method, we reach the same performance than random forest, which is the state-of-the-art machine learning method. And then, so it's not quantum advantage at this implementation, but and that was only on 50 qubits of our device. But then if we did a simulation that with a little bit more, like 90 qubits and a bit more flexibility in the qubit interaction, we can reach quantum advantage. So really outperforming the classical method for a useful task, right, for a business case. And so it is something that is on our roadmap that in the next year we can most likely achieve. So that means, bringing quantum and machine learning together for something that is useful. And that was convincing enough that Crédit Agricole is actually putting this solution into their workflow already. We're also at Pasqal, we're also working on graph. And it's interesting because you can map a problem onto the geometry of the atoms. So map 1-to-1 or natively the graph problem onto and you can move the atoms and then really map the same type of graph, so that the problem that you want to solve, you can solve in a lot less operation, and it's much faster. So we did that, and then much faster. But then we also have you have less error that you accumulate during these. So we're doing that on drug discovery problem, and we're using a real data set also on biological different system, and then again we benchmark against the state-of-the-art graph machine learning classical method, and arrive at the similar, like on par performance, not quantum advantage today, but really promising that we can achieve that very quickly. So yeah, I hope that answers the question of AI and quantum. Right now, I think they're competing and they're really working together. This is not the dream of the quantum simulation of chemistry, right? Of solving the time-dependent Schrödinger equation for this big molecule. We're not there yet, but there are so many other problems that are interesting too, and that can bring a lot of business value that we can start working on today.
Yeah, I view it a little bit like a competition, only because if you think about research and development budgets, things like that, some companies are thinking along the lines of, we're going to spend some R&D on something this year. It's got to be AI because that's what everyone's talking about,
Yeah.
So you could see that kind of happening.
I see that. Yeah.
So when they're pulled together into one, it makes a very compelling case. So what other real world applications for quantum technology, in your opinion, show the most promise for helping quantum just like really show its advantage as soon as possible?
Yeah, so at Pasqal, we are working with the different industry sectors, different verticals, working in the utility vertical with optimization of grid management, working with on the automotive, for instance, with BMW, who have a good partnership. Looking at the new batteries and also the deformation of metal when there's a car crash, for instance. Working on climate simulation with BASF, and in pharma, we're working on we developed a new method for drug discovery, so a new optimization and quantum extremal learning method. And so very, very different ways that we're working with partners.
So I'd love to hear some thoughts about the roadmap that Pasqal has planned for the machines, like where you see it going, qubit counts, the switch over to gates for digital.
Yeah, what I can share is that we're working for very short term, really pushing the analog mode and the analog digital mode, the hybrid like this, because this is where we see we can achieve quantum advantage first. So we think that we need these demonstrator. All the ecosystem needs good demonstrator that we can achieve quantum advantage. So hopefully this is Pasqal that does it first, but the whole ecosystem needs that. And then so we're working on that. We have currently our device has 100 qubits. Our commercial device, we have a second generation of 200 qubits. In the lab, we achieve 350 atoms, and so it's really what we know that we can scale with the very same device up to 1,000 qubits, and without any fabrication or any change of the device. And with the same device, we can also develop the digital mode. So it's a synergic and continuous development, both analog and digital.
So do you view that about 1,000 would be the ideal number of qubits to shoot for in that device, or?
Yeah, no, it's not what I meant, but then there will need to be a modification of the device to go beyond that number of qubits.
Like you mentioned, maybe higher dimensional matrices or something.
Sure, yeah.
Different shapes.
Yeah.
And
but there's no need for interconnect, right? It's just the same. So it's not in a chip where you need to connect different chips together. As we scale, it's still the same type of device.
So the current roadmap is to keep scaling by that method, dimension and size, and just keeping it all in one kind of chip.
Well, for the next 1 to 3 years, I can share that this is the way that we are.
Yeah, that seems realistic.
Yeah. And you mentioned about it's a winter and it's getting a little maybe tough on the quantum side, but I think it is the case for all deep tech in general, from what I'm hearing by investors and analysts, right? But at the same time, Pasqal, we raised our Series B of 100 million euros this year, and this is the biggest raise in Europe so far. So we're still seeing a lot of traction. I think also because we're working with partners already and building capacity internally. I think it is the way the industry needs to go, even if they're not reaching quantum advantage tomorrow, but tomorrow plus one, they'll be prepared and they'll have capacity internally, and that will bring them a huge strategic advantage against other competitors. So we're there. So I think the fact that we're working with the industry already and since the beginning of Pasqal, that helps also.
Yeah, what's exciting and impresses me is how many of your use cases are just like knocking on the door of advantage. They're like right there, a few percentage points off, if you want to consider it that way. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting to monitor this. So thanks so much for sharing all the information about your company and the approach. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now it's time for Coherence, the Quantum Executive Summary, where I take a moment to highlight some of the business impacts we discussed today, in case things got too nerdy at times. Let's recap. Pasqal makes neutral atom quantum computers that operate at room temperature and use less energy compared to some other modalities. The neutral atoms are controlled by laser and should allow for large numbers of qubits on one device. Organizations can experiment with Pasqal systems directly through the company today, but expect to see access via Microsoft Azure Quantum soon. In addition to helping Pasqal accelerate its roadmap, Catherine is also involved in standardization efforts in quantum computing. She chairs 2 working groups at IEEE and is involved with the new Joint Technical Committee in Europe. She closely follows what goes on at ISO and other standards bodies. The goal is to ensure we have a common language in this early industry stage. And it's what we should be doing, according to the NIST ranking of our industry, as currently being in the range of commercial prototypes. Next, we'll need to tackle the different modalities of qubit types and how we benchmark such different entities. Catherine's pretty experienced at performing this sort of role. In 2018, she tackled similar concerns in the growing field of AI. Pasqal is now working on quantum ML use cases, so all this comes full circle for her. That does it for this episode. Thanks to Catherine Lefebvre for joining to discuss Pasqal. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protivity's The Post-Quantum World and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on all socials at Constant Hacker. That's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protiviti. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protiviti.com or follow Protiviti Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.